The old brick cabin sat on the edge of the world. At least, that's what it felt like when I pulled up the long, winding driveway on a late autumn afternoon. The trees crowded close, their bare branches skeletal fingers against a bruised sky. My parents, bless them, had practically given me the place. It had been in the family for generations. They'd moved to a smaller place after my dad retired, and I, frankly, needed a break from the relentless grind of city life. The cabin was isolated, bordering vast, uncharted woods on two sides. Perfect for clearing my head. The first couple of days were peaceful. I settled in, enjoyed the silence broken only by the wind in the trees, read, cooked simple meals. I'd brought enough food, cigarettes, and liquor to last me a while. The cabin itself was old, 2 stories, but cozy. Downstairs was the main living area and a small guest room I never went into, keeping its door firmly shut. Upstairs were the bedrooms and a master with a walkout balcony. Most of my time was spent in the living room or the master bedroom. It was the third night when things started. A heavy snowfall had kept me indoors all day. As darkness fell, a strange noise filtered up from downstairs. It sounded like furniture scraping across the floor. I froze, listening. Then came a series of scratches, like claws on wood, followed by what sounded unmistakably like footsteps on the stairs. My heart hammered against my ribs. The footsteps paused at the top of the stairs. I held my breath, straining to hear anything over the wind outside. Silence. Just the cabin settling, I told myself. Old houses make noises. I tried to dismiss it, but the unease had set in. Sleep came fitfully that night. The next day, the snow lay thick and undisturbed across the property. I went outside for some fresh air, trying to shake off the lingering fear from the night before. As I walked around the back of the cabin, towards the edge of the woods, I saw them. Footprints in the fresh snow. My first thought was an animal, maybe a large deer, but as I looked closer, a sickening chill washed over me. They were human footprints, and there were no shoe marks. Someone had been walking around my cabin, barefoot, in the freezing snow. Who would do that? And why? The prints led from the edge of the woods, circled the cabin, and then went back into the trees. I quickly checked around the house, the doors, the windows. Everything seemed secure, but the sight of those prints, the sheer strangeness of them, stuck with me. It felt like an invasion. That night, the sounds returned. This time, they seemed closer. Distinct footsteps outside the cabin walls. Slow, deliberate, circling. Then, a light tapping began on the living room window. It was gentle at first, like fingers drumming against the glass. I crept downstairs, peering through a gap in the curtains. I couldn't see anything in the pitch blackness outside, but the tapping continued, consistent, unwavering, for what felt like an hour. It was unnerving. I stood there, rooted to the spot, a strange feeling washing over me, a sense that whoever was out there was somehow inviting me to open the door. But another feeling, deeper, instinctive, screamed at me to stay put. I heard a voice in my head, like my dad telling me to listen to my gut. I stayed where I was. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the old house, every gust of wind, sounded like the footsteps coming closer. Paranoia began to set in. The solitude of the woods, which had seemed appealing at first, now felt suffocating. I tied the bedroom door shut with a rope, something I'd only ever seen in movies. It did little to ease the anxiety. The days blurred into a cycle of tension and exhaustion. The bare footprints reappeared each morning, sometimes leading to the small shed out back, from which a few tools were now missing. The sheer audacity of it, the feeling that someone was just doing these things, seemingly without motive, was terrifying. They were just there. The nights were a different kind of hell. The footsteps returned, sometimes multiple sets. They didn't sound in sync. Then came the whistling, a slow, eerie tune carried on the wind. It seemed to come from the edge of the woods, just beyond the property line. I would freeze, every muscle tense, listening as the sound drew closer, then stopped. What followed was always worse. The quiet crunching of twigs and leaves, the sound of someone, or something, circling the cabin. My mind started playing tricks on me. I'd see shadows flickering at the edge of my vision that vanished when I turned my head. Once, walking to the kitchen for water, I vividly remember stepping into what felt like an ankle-deep puddle. I heard the splash, felt the cold soak my sock. But when I looked down, the floor was completely dry. It felt so real, it was like a hallucination. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to ground myself. The hallucinations mostly subsided, but the pervasive sense of being watched remained. One evening, just as dusk was settling in, I stood on the back deck, looking towards the woods. A faint flickering glow caught my eye. At first, I thought it might be a distant campfire, but it was too close, just at the edge of the trees. It looked like the pulsing light of small torches. Curiosity, mixed with a potent fear, compelled me to step off the deck and walk closer to the tree line. Then I saw them, at least 3 figures standing just past the edge of the woods. Each held a small torch. They weren't moving, weren't doing anything except standing there, facing the cabin. Facing me. I fought back a scream. Their forms were indistinct in the fading light, silhouetted against the trees. I stumbled back into the cabin, heart pounding, and locked the door. I called the police. I tried to explain what I'd seen, the footprints, the sounds, the figures with torches. They took my statement, gave me a report number. They said they'd patrol the area, but without definitive evidence of a crime having been committed on the property, there wasn't much they could do. Trespassing alone wouldn't warrant a full search. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. The nights grew colder, the snow deeper. The police presence, if there was any, was discreet. I saw no sign of them. The footprints continued to appear, a chilling reminder that I wasn't alone. Tools went missing from the shed. It felt like whoever was out there was just toying with me. One night, I woke abruptly. The house was silent, except for a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from the bedroom door. It was light, almost hesitant. I called out, "Who is it?" The tapping stopped. No answer. I cautiously got out of bed and opened the door. No one was there. I checked the small landing outside the room, then peered down the stairs. Nothing. The next night, the tapping returned. This time, it was louder, a distinct knocking. Again, I asked who it was, and again, the knocking stopped with no response. I opened the door quickly, expecting to see someone ducking away, but the landing was empty. The third night, the knocking was louder than ever. It was insistent, demanding. My body was frozen in fear, but a surge of adrenaline propelled me forward. I threw open the door. Still nothing on the landing. But this time, as I sprinted to the top of the stairs and looked down the hallway towards the living room, I caught a fleeting glimpse. The back of a figure disappearing around the corner into the dining room. My blood ran cold. There was someone inside the house. I grabbed the largest knife from the kitchen. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip it. I knew I had to call the police again. I dialed 911, speaking loudly, hoping whoever was in the house would hear me. I told the operator my crazy ex-girlfriend might have broken in, a desperate lie to make them take it seriously, drawing on a past, much less terrifying experience. I crept towards the dining room, the knife held out in front of me. The door separating the dining room from the living room, which I always kept shut, was now open a crack. I pushed it open slowly. The room was dark, the silence deafening. I blurted out, "Who's in here?" No response. Suddenly, the house plunged into complete darkness. The power was out. A chilling sound echoed from the living room, the loud, metallic bang of the oven door being repeatedly opened and slammed shut. Bang, 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 over and over. It was horrifying. I edged towards the living room, peering into the darkness. By the faint light filtering through the windows, I could make out a silhouette standing in front of the oven. A human shape. "Martha," I called out, using a name that sprang inexplicably to mind, perhaps a jumble from some half-remembered fear. The banging stopped. The figure turned slowly, facing me. I could just make out wide, staring eyes and a completely blank expression. They didn't say anything. They just started walking towards me, towards the stairs. I backed away, tripping over something unseen in the dark. The figure walked past me, expressionless, and began ascending the stairs. I heard the heavy slam of the bedroom door upstairs. Silence returned, but the image of that figure, the unsettling blankness, the strange action with the oven, was seared into my mind. I called the police back, my voice trembling. They arrived quickly this time, sirens wailing in the distance, then cutting out as they approached. The officers did a sweep of the house. They found no one. No signs of forced entry either. Every door and window appeared locked. But one of the officers noted that the large dining room window was unlocked. It was big enough for someone to crawl through, although it would be tight, obscured by a thick bush outside. They stayed for a while longer, searching the immediate woods around the cabin, but found nothing. They suggested I stay elsewhere for the night, maybe with neighbors, but the nearest ones were miles away. I ended up spending the rest of the night huddled in the living room, wide awake, a rifle I'd found in the closet across my lap, jumping at every sound. The police case went nowhere. Without solid proof of who was in the house, or even that someone had been in the house beyond my word, there was little they could do. The bare footprints stopped appearing after that night, or maybe the snow just melted. I don't know. I didn't stay long enough to find out. I packed up the next day and left. I haven't been back. The cabin sits empty now, on the edge of those dark woods. I still think about it constantly. Who were they? Why the footprints? The sounds? The figures? The oven? Was it one person or multiple? Were they just trying to scare me? Or was it something worse? The fear, the perpetual anxiety of those last few days, changed me. I haven't slept properly since. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear a faint tapping sound or glimpse a shadow in my peripheral vision. People are just too scary. But whatever was out there, in the woods and in that cabin, felt like something beyond just people. It felt like something primal, something connected to the wild, dark heart of the forest itself. I don't know what they wanted. An islet felt like a ritual, like I had wandered into something ancient, something that had been playing out for generations, something that wasn't meant to be interrupted. And maybe that's why they stopped. Maybe once I acknowledged them, once I saw them, they didn't need to pretend anymore. I've tried to rationalize it 1,000 times. Was it some strange cult? Local squatters messing with me? A hallucination brought on by isolation and fear? But those barefoot footprints in the snow, the slamming oven, the blank face of the figure who walked right past me as if I was the one intruding, they weren't imagination. Sometimes I dream about the cabin. In the dreams, I'm back inside, and it's quiet at first. But then I hear the tapping. Always the tapping. And when I try to run, the house stretches endlessly, like the hallways never end. I wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, convinced someone is outside my window. I've spoken to my parents about it, asked if they ever experienced anything strange there. My mom went quiet. My dad just said, "We didn't want to scare you." That was it. No explanation. Just that. I've checked online forums, searched for other reports in that region. Sometimes I come across cryptic posts, mentions of watchers in the woods, or the barefoot ones. But nothing concrete, just whispers. I haven't told many people this story. Most wouldn't believe it. Hell, I barely believe it myself. But if you ever find yourself alone, in a cabin, deep in the woods, and you hear tapping at your window, don't look. Just don't.